Welcome to Whisperwood Stories. Today, we read 3 stories from r/backwoodscreepy. Let's begin. Our first story is from MarkedByNyxx. Do the woods feel unwelcoming at night sometimes where you live? I live fairly remotely in New Hampshire, at the edge of the Great North Woods, and there are forests surrounding my house. I spent most of my childhood growing up in the woods and never had an issue exploring, either on foot or on horseback. And for the most part, I've had a good understanding and healthy respect of the animals that live in the woods out here. I don't know when I started noticing, but over the years, I picked up on the fact that some nights throughout the year, the woods feel unwelcoming. I don't know how to describe it other than I shouldn't be out there, and it feels like the woods become an entirely different place than what they usually are. One of the things that I've noticed most predominantly during the unwelcoming nights is that the wildlife seems to disappear or act differently. For example, there have always been coyotes where I live, and I could always hear them howling all year round, except during those nights. I've also noticed that the wild ducks who typically live at the pond in my house will disappear the day before one of the unwelcoming nights. It seems to me like it's similar to advice that I've heard said here before, that if you don't hear birds or animals in the woods, that there is a reason for them to be quiet. Years ago, I had an experience with what I believe to be a not deer in the area. So I have experience with weird things, and I know that there are weird things going on in the area, as it's typical for the Appalachians. And the feeling that I get on the unwelcoming nights in the woods is similar to the eerie feeling that I've had when experiencing cryptid/paranormal things in the past. Has anyone experienced anything similar? Or is there anything that could be causing this kind of event that would make even wildlife dip for the night? Our second story is from Cornator. I've been having trouble sleeping for 5 years. Here's why. To cut an extremely long story short, my friend used to live in a house that was well in the woods. One day, he told me something was happening around his house, so I spent the night there. We sat with our backs to the wall, and the second-story window cracked just a bit. As we were talking, we started hearing strange noises coming from the woods. We were shocked as we peeked to see out what it was. Between his house and the woods was a big open area. We could faintly see the open area because of moonlight, but we couldn't see the pitch blackness of the woods. Suddenly, some large, white creature that looked like a naked man creeped out. It was bald and its eyes were glowing. When we freaked out, I yelped a bit too loud, causing it to stop and go back into the woods. The next day, being the curious people that we were, we decided to go out into the woods and search. Eventually, we found a strange uprooted tree with a bunch of holes in the ground. We heard heavy breathing coming from inside somewhere, but we decided not to go in there looking. A few weeks went by, and nothing. I came back to his house to sleep over. He asked me to go grab one of his bikes off the back porch. I went back there through the garage, But as I was grabbing it, I felt like something was watching me. I looked off towards the woods but saw nothing. Suddenly, I heard a strange noise literally over my head. I looked up at the roof, which was about 7 feet off of the ground in that section of the house due to the elevation of the porch, and I saw a similar creature sitting on the roof just feet from my face. When I panicked, it shrieked in my face and I ran back into the garage and slammed the door shut. My friend ran into the garage from inside the house to see what had happened, and I was panicking, telling him to lock everything. We locked ourselves inside and waited for his dad to come back. This was around 6 to 8 p.m. I don't remember exactly, but it was closer to night. His dad was in the military and decided to step out and take a look after he came home. We told him what had happened. He saw that same creature in the distance just on the edge of the woods, but had no explanation for it. It's been 5 years since that happened, and now I've been seeing sightings of things just like this all over the place. YouTube, Reddit, Facebook, etc. It's really been haunting me lately, thinking back on that sound it made when it shrieked and the way that thing looked. It was terrifying. Its eyes seemed very strange too. I kind of tied 2 and 2 and figured it must live beneath the ground somewhere and only came up when it's dark. Anyone else witness anything like this? Our last story is from Babe the First. Lake House Weekend. After reading a few posts on here, I've decided to add one of the creepier, still unexplained events that happened to me and a group of friends within the past 5 years. Thinking back on it, I still get this unnerved, bad feeling that just sort of lingers. Anyway, here goes. A group of friends and myself rented a place on a lake for just a fun-filled, drunken weekend. We were all in our young to mid-20s, and it was supposed to be just a big party. For the most part, that's what it was. The Friday night and Saturday morning, we pretty much went all out, and just doing fun, stupid stuff. Well, naturally, when Saturday afternoon rolled around, we were all so dead from going all out, we decided that it would be a night of no drinking, maybe a little weed smoking for some of us, and just kind of having a chill evening and night. That's what it was. Relaxed. So, 9 p.m. comes rolling around, and about 8 of us were inside the house and 5 outside. The house was 2 stories, with a second-story deck/back porch, and it was surrounded by the woods, and then down through the woods, you would then hit the lake. I'll mention that we already had experienced some weird vibes from the locals when we first arrived in town. Mostly just backcountry old-timers that I assumed were leering and irritated because a bunch of college-aged kids were looking to have a good time. But the town and the lake were so large, it's not like anyone would have known where we were staying. Anyways, 3 of my friends were on the upstairs back porch, and my other friend and I were downstairs outside, just talking on this little old table near the woods. I mean, it was otherwise just a really nice night. My friend and I were just getting lost in conversation, and all of a sudden, there was a weird feeling that encompassed us, like an unnerving physical experience that came from the woods behind us. It was so strong, we both kind of quieted down, and then out of nowhere, this loud chanting abruptly came from the woods. I have no idea how far away it was. Because of the way that the lake is set up, I'm pretty sure the voices carried up through the forest. It sounded like a cult chanting away, and all of the voices were male. I mean, they were loud enough and perfectly in sync. I think we were frozen for all about 20 seconds before I couldn't contain myself and darted towards the house with her following me. I don't know how to explain the feeling that came with that chanting, but it was almost evil, like something so powerfully uninviting. I was shaking by the time we got up to the second story and ran out to the balcony with the other 3 friends. One of them was my brother. By the time we got up there, the chanting was gone, and I naturally asked, "Did you guys hear that?" in the most shaky, freaked out voice. They all had heard that, and not seconds later, the chanting began again. So the 5 of us were out there peering into the forest, listening to this chanting that would sometimes sound far away and then sound relatively close. All male voices in the weirdest language, or I don't even know what it was. Sounded like a strange, extreme church. Then, following the chanting, a loud bang like something hit a huge metal object sounded, and then the worst part came. A man wailing. Like an extreme pain wailing. All of my hair was up. It was the freakiest experience ever. My brother and I were staring at each other in a mixture of scared excitement and horror. The wailing stopped, and then it was back to chanting, which eventually died out. I was so freaked out by it that I wanted to call the cops, because whoever screamed had been in a lot of pain. That, mixed with the weird chanting, just made me immediately think of some terrible sacrifice going on. One friend tried to say that it had been some drunk guys just messing around, singing and being weird. But no way was that coming from some drunk guys. They were perfectly in sync. Then the bang, then the wail of pain. And then, all that weird tension and energy was just gone. Nope. I didn't call the cops, and I wish I would have. But honestly, that forest was so large, and since the lake house was up looking down at the woods and lake, it could have been from anywhere. It definitely wasn't in our close proximity, but it was close enough to hear all of that perfectly. We went in and got some of the others, but by the time they came out, the chanting had stopped. Someone wanted to go explore and find where it had been coming from, but obviously, that was a stupid idea. After that, I was ready to go home. I can't explain the relief of driving away from there the next morning. Even now, it gives me the worst feeling. Whatever that was, it felt so wrong and evil. I'll never forget that moment. I can only imagine it was some kind of weird, cult stuff. Thank you for listening to Whisperwood Stories. If you enjoyed, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below. Do you have a story that you'd like me to read here? Consider commenting or sending it to whisperwoodsubmissions@gmail.com. The stories in this video were read and may have been slightly altered, all with specific authors' permissions. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to check out the original Reddit posts. Don't let the shadows get too close.